As you know by now, HR planning is a very important aspect of the HR function. It allows you to see your demand for people in the near term and the future term, and also the supply, so that you're not caught off guard on any sort of staffing requirements. Of course, there's elements of recruitment, selection, training development, or learning development, retention in there as well. You want to do some analysis on data related to HR planning, and that's what this exercise is going to take you through. So if you are the kind of person who forgot a little bit of the pivots that we learned in previous classes, then make sure you have a look at the basic pivot video tutorials as well, and the link will be provided to you where this file is. And then open up the HR planning analysis data file, and you'll see all sorts of interesting data available for you to use. So we start off with the Notes tab, and that just gives you some pointers in terms of who these people are, what the company is. We're a large producer of fabricated aluminum parts for engines, so there's machinery involved, there's staff, there's warehousing, there's inventory, and so on. And give you some metrics in terms of how many units are produced, how many people, how many days or hours people can work. So we use that for indexing purposes. So a lot of these concepts will be discovered in your HR planning class, but the purpose of this tutorial is to take you through the data to make you a little bit more familiar with it. And I believe the end result will be you digging into the data, gleaning or extracting as much intelligence out of it as possible, putting it into Word, and you simply copy and paste out of pivots into Word as much as you can, and then whittle it down, kind of narrow it down, focus it down to something that's meaningful. You're going to provide your analysis, your thoughts, what you found, and hopefully even suggestions for improvements going forward. And all that, of course, is going to add to your strategic process as well. So let's have a look. We've got the notes here. You can have a read. We've got some basic analysis notes as well in another tab, and have a look. It just gives you an idea of some of the common HR planning metrics. And I should tell you, the data itself in the master tab has information related not just to planning, but also things that are relevant to recruitment and selection as well. So you might want to combine a few things, come up with your own type of analysis, and certainly Google to see what type of common HR metrics there are specifically related to HR planning. So let's get started. I'll give you a quick overview of how pivots work as well. But again, I recommend you watch that initial tutorial before you do this. So let's have a look. When you go into the master tab, you'll see the data is very familiar, right? You've got names of employees. You can certainly determine how many employees there are, the title of the job, and the position code. So I'll explain that. For example, if a job title is president, president dash one means that that's the first person occupying the job president. So there's only one position for the job title president. But if you look at CNC lead hand, this person, Anas Abar, is CNC lead hand 1. But you'll also get to this person here who's CNC lead hand 2. So these are individual positions occupying the same job. And if you have 10 people who are CNC lead hands, you'd go all the way up to CNC lead hand 10. Who the person reports to, and that's quite important because managers, in fact, do make a lot of this happen. Hires, terminations, keeping the right employees, getting rid of the bad employees based on some sort of performance metrics. You might want to do some analysis on that. Now, this one's important. The data that you see, all of it, uh, includes all employees from the beginning of time, so when the company was first started. So all these termination dates and the reasons next to them show you which employees were in fact terminated. So if you think about it, most analysis will be done on current employees, right? So make sure that no matter what you do in pivots, take out the termination dates or just look at the ones that are blanks that don't have termination dates. But you certainly might want to do some exit analysis based on when people were terminated, who the managers are responsible to, the reasons for termination, and so on. And that would help you, of course, control the supply side of HR planning. So let's move forward. You've got your date of hire, you've got the date of birth, the gender, and EEQ target, which is quite important if you're complying with federal or provincial level employment equity. So remember, there's little red things in the corner. If you're not sure, just move your mouse over it and you'll see what these target groups mean. You've got the age of the employee, You've got, and which by the way is calculated, so it changes every single day. You've got the actual department number the person works for, so you can do any analysis broken down by department, not just demographics, right? How many years a person's been with us, their average performance rating for the last 12 months, and I would think A is the highest, and I guess D or E is the lowest. Retirement preference. Now, this is good. We surveyed employees and asked them, when would you like to retire? Typically, age 65, I think most people would identify with. Let's have a look. You've got people retiring possibly at 45, at 50, 55, even 70. So that means if this person is a critical employee, we'd like to keep them up to age 70 because we spent a lot of time and a lot of money in developing them, right? Succession preference. So this is important. We asked the employees, do you want to take jobs in the future, higher end jobs? So, for example, if a person's a machine operator, we ask them, how likely on a scale of, let's say, 1 to 3, are you to take on the supervisor's role or the manager's role? And some people just say, nope, I'm happy right where I am. Code 1. Code 2 means maybe. Code 3 means, yeah, I really want to move up the ladder. So obviously, we're going to use that for some sort of planning, succession planning as well, and commit learning development or training and development dollars to these people. Core skills. This means does the person have the minimal, the BFOR skills required to take on future jobs? So if you're a machine operator, do you have the skills to take on the next job, which is the supervisor, right? So if you're an HR manager, do you have the skills to take on the vice president of HR job? So then value skills, this is important. Uh, does this employer, to what degree on a scale of 0 to 100%, does this employee have additional value added skills that will allow them to transition into a higher level job? So if a person, for example, doesn't need an MBA to take on a manager role, but is working on one anyways, or they manage to gain all sorts of skills such as conflict resolutions or financial controlling, whatever, those are value skills. These are extra over and above things that a person might bring to the table to take on, let's say, higher level jobs. Scarce resource on a scale of 1 to 5. So if you're a scarce resource 1, it means if you left for whatever reason or we fired you, you're easy to replace. A scarce resource 5 means you're not that easy to replace. You might be a high end engineer, a person with highly technical skills or management capability. We want to be careful about your succession or your retirement or your exit, right? So we can do analysis on that. And then further to that, there's more recruitment and selection type information. What agency were you recruited from or what source? Which HR person was responsible for your recruit? When we posted the offer date? And when was the offer accepted? So if you want, dabble in some of that, do some recruitment and selection metrics as well. So now let's get started, okay? First of all, rule of pivot table, make sure the data is clean. And I've cleaned the data up for you, and that means there are no blank rows or no blank columns, right? You click on any one cell, click Insert at the top, click Pivot Table, and OK. And you'll see a new tab at the bottom, right? Master table is still there, but Sheet 1 gives you a new pivot zone. And the idea is you can have as many pivot zones as you want. Just keep going back to the data, insert pivot table, OK. And when you find something that you like, highlight it, copy and paste it into your Word document. So it looks a lot cleaner there. Your report will pop out in Word, not so much in Excel, right? So let's have a look. On the right hand side, you've got all the different columns that are listed. So step 1, obviously, is to become familiar with what each column means. And if you're working with this data on a daily basis, you know what position code is, you know what termination date is, and so on. And then you've got your 4 boxes down here. So the idea is we're going to drag and drop one of these items into one of these boxes. Now, if it's a word like job title or last name, first name, obviously you can only see it or you can count it. So as an example, let's drop last name, first name into rows, and you can see a list of all unique names. So if there's 2 people with the name Josh Barnhill, you're only going to see it once, right? So that doesn't really tell you that there are that many employees. So what we're going to do is take last name, first name from rows, drop it into the garbage can right here, disappears, right? And now drop it into values and see what happens. It gives you the number 381. which really means I have 381 names. And if you have 381 names, you must have 381 employees, right? So I have 381 employees. Now, how many of them are female? How many are male? Let's take gender. And you can put gender either in rows, female versus male, or you can take gender from rows and pivot it to columns. It does exactly the same thing. It all depends on how you want to see it, right? So I'm just going to put gender back to rows. And let's say I want to do a percentage. What percentage of my 381 people are female? Just off to the side here, I'll do a little calculation. Equal sign B4, number of females, divided by B6, which is the total number of people, and it's 40.62%. Click on it, click the percent button. You got your decimal places here, and that's a number you would use in your report. You're not going to show people this. You're going to copy and paste it, right? So let's just delete that. Now, this information on the right-hand side disappeared. That's okay. Just click back in to your table here, and you'll see it. So here's what I'd like to do. Take gender, put it back into columns, and I want to do gender by job title. So I'm going to take job title, put it in rows, and it shows me all the different jobs and all the different genders. And this is amazing for equity purposes, both pay and employment equity. You can figure out dominance and so on. And if I wanted to see who my 3 female assistant manager of operations are, I can double click on the number 3 and it will tell me exactly who these people are, right? And notice it just created a new sheet for you down here. So let's go back to sheet 1. I've done what I needed to do. I'm going to take job title out, and I'm going to take gender, leave it there, and let's put EEQ target. So I'm going to put EEQ target there, and it's telling me that out of all the females that I have, 155, there are 2 that did not report any equity, any employment equity target groups, or they don't classify into one of them. But there's 139 females, one of which happens to be a female and a visible minority. 2 of them are females, Aboriginal. And if you look at males, there's 8 of them that are Aboriginal, 6 that have disabilities. So this, of course, goes a long way to providing some sort of analysis for planning purposes, right? So I'm going to delete sheet 1. I'm done with it. I've copied, pasted it into Word. We're okay. We're good to go. So right click, delete, get rid of it. You can keep it if you like. It's not a problem. Let's get rid of it. Now go back to master table, right? Now let's have a look. I'm afraid that people are going to retire way too quickly, and we could do this by department as well. So let's do a brand new pivot table. I want to see age over here, and I want to see the number of people here. So I'm going to group these ages. I don't want to look at every little tiny age. So I'm going to right click on an age, go to group, put by 5s. So groups of 5 years. There we go, 5-year blocks. Okay. And don't worry about these. You can always just take the column, make it a bit narrower. But I've got so many people in my 60s, which are these. And don't be afraid to highlight them. Go up here to your paint bucket and just change the color, right? So I think these people are the ones who are going to retire pretty darn quickly. I mean, there's somebody who's 67, and we could double click on it and see what their retirement preference is and so on, and see exactly who it is. It's a manager of CNC, which is quite critical. I think it's Scarce Resource 3 code, and they actually want to retire at 65. So they're overdue for retirement. I think we better start dealing with them. There's 75 people who are in that 62 range. That's quite dangerous. So we want to now dig deep and figure out exactly who these people are. So let's do this. Let's put department in filters, and you're going to see the filter up here, and we're going to do analysis by groups of departments, right? So let's do select multiple items, unselect them all, and let's just do these departments here, these first 3. And the numbers in front of you will be narrowed down just to those 3 departments. And look, just those 3 departments, we've got 24 people out of 109. That's like 20% of our workforce. We're going to retire pretty darn quickly, right? So you want to start playing around with some of that as well. Let's go back to master. Let's do another one. Insert, pivot table. Okay. And this time, let's do some analysis on termination. I want to put termination date here, and it gives me all the different dates that people were terminated and the number of people that were terminated. and I want to see this by year, right? So I want to right click, group, and let's group it by years. And notice that it's giving us everybody, but there's 363 that are blank. So number one thing you always want to do with any analysis is to put termination date in filters and make sure that you filter out everything except blank. You don't want to see blanks in this case, but if you're doing analysis that's not terminated, make sure you only choose blank so it doesn't include terminated people. Okay, let's do that. All blanks, and it tells me there's 363 people who are not terminated. They actually work for me right now. Okay, and of course, you want to let's do one in terms of who they report to. There we go. So these are all the people, the manager names, I suppose, and these are the number of people that report into it. So look at this supervisor of operations. There's 103 people that report into that supervisor. There might be some sort of planning exercise you could do to see that's overwhelming. Let's maybe consider hiring more supervisors. Now, thing is, how many supervisors are there? Well, let's have a look. Let's go back to our master data, job title, and let's go up here to sort filter and filter A to Z. And let's look for supervisor of operations. Okay. And just quick way of showing that there are in fact a lot of supervisor of operations. We don't have anything to worry about. And the other way to do it, I should tell you, you don't always have to use pivots, is if you go up here to sort filter, click the filter button, you can now just click on one of these arrows and say, you know what, that I'm only looking for supervisor operations, and it will narrow that down for you. Okay, so few simple things to do in pivots. Make sure that you always unclear your filters, get rid of it when you're done. Have fun with it. Go in and get as much analysis as possible you can out of it. Sort things, filter things, do whatever you have to, but always remember, get the terminated people out. So just to show you again, insert pivot table, OK, put termination date in filters. Before you do anything, make sure that you choose just blank. So that'll give you only active employees. Whatever you do down here will only be active people, right? There we go. Copy paste the stuff into your report, break it down left, right, and center, break it down as often as you want. Then in your Word document, you can then delete and clean things up to make your report really, really professional and stand out. And don't forget, discuss your findings, discuss your rationale for your findings, provide solutions, and maybe even assign a code. How critical is this on a scale of 1 to 10 to deal with in the near term? So play with the data, have fun, and let me know if there's any other elements that you want to add.